did I read when I was young that inspired me to get into comics? The easy answer is comic books. So I read a lot of comics as a kid. But you know, it's a bigger story than that. I was born in South Korea. I was born in Seoul, South Korea. And we moved to the United States when I was 5 years old. And so I didn't know any English. And so I had to learn at school, obviously, kindergarten. But I was immediately drawn to the comic books because you can read the stories by just looking at the pictures. And then I started reading the words, and I realized the stories were very different than what I imagined them to be. And that was probably the first notion of image comics was created at that moment. Maybe the stories without pictures, or the stories without words could work with anyway. So, you know, as a kid, I loved all the comics, but also a lot of sci-fi, science fiction movies. You know, like these are all black and white movies. They would take giant insects like ants and grasshoppers and make them gigantic, and they would terrorize small American towns. And that was our version of Star Wars. That's what we had. So. And so there wasn't a lot of, you know, today there's so much choice. You guys have so many things that you can choose to follow. You can be a Battlestar Galactica fan or Star Wars fan or DC Comics fan. Back then, we just had one or two things, but you know, I was very passionate about it, and it forced you to sit down and create your own mythologies, your own stories, because there wasn't so much to choose from. Well, I started drawing when I was 5 in Korea. I remember having a art tutor, so we used to draw in oil pastels, and I would draw, you know, army men and you know, dinosaurs, monsters, and obviously giant insects, you know, so very, very big. You know, when I got older, I was obviously influenced by a lot of mainstream American comic book artists, like John Byrne, Frank Miller, George Perez,
Michael Walden.
Yeah, Michael Walden. Yeah. You got all the answers already. It's weird because I grew up in the Midwest of America. There was no comic shop, so I bought my comic book stores at like a local convenience store. Right, so it was rare just to meet another person that collected comics. So it was very, very different now. I would never imagine years later that you'd be sitting here in Argentina talking to all these Argentinian South American comic book fans, united by our common passion. It's a very long road, very, very strange journey.